Welcome to Scandinavian MIND Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more, from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, the Vatican is launching an NFT art gallery. What is that even? We talk about that. Also, Spotify launches its own island in Roblox. We talk about what that means for music in the digital space. Also, we hear from the senior researcher of the Finnish wearable brand Polar, Mr. Jussi Peltonen. Polar celebrates the 45 years in the wearable industry this year, and we met them in Helsinki this week. I'm Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian MIND, and I'm here today with my dear colleague Erik Sedin. Not only that's a lot, but we are missing Roland. How are you, Erik?
Oh, I'm good, and it's true. I don't really feel whole unless the Holy Trinity is here. So it's only us two.
So lots to talk about this week. I have been traveling to Helsinki. Always nice to be out traveling. Our colleague Johan is also out traveling. He's in Berlin. You have a trip coming up to Paris next week. So I really feel like we are out and about this month.
Yeah. It's like you said, everyone has just decided that this May and this June is just like everyone's going somewhere every day. It doesn't matter.
And I think it's a struggle for PR and marketing departments everywhere, because now they want everyone to be at their event these couple of months. But before we go into the stories this week, I think we should plug a big story survey that's up on scandinavianmind.com. This week. It's by our contributing editor, Oliver Dahle, who has done a very impressive, ambitious survey of how the world's biggest fashion universities are adapting to digitization. This is a two-part series. We published the first part this week. Erik, you've been helping Oliver with editing this. What can you tell us?
So yeah, like you said, it's gonna be a second part too. So it'll be really great to have Oliver on here for when that comes out to get his whole general view of this theme.
For sure.
But yeah, so like the first part here is four quite famous universities if you're into fashion. It's Royal College of Art in London, Polymoda in Florence, Via University in Denmark. I think it's in Aarhus, and then our Swedish. Version, that is Swedish School of Textiles in Borås. So basically you have lecturers, you have their professors, and you have their head of fashion or head of education that answers kind of the same questions of what are you doing and how are the students adapting to digitization in fashion. It's really up our alley, something we've been talking about a lot. So it's really interesting to see where it comes from a seed perspective, when seed is planted and when these students and all these fashion people are, where they get their education, how supported are they in their, like if they want to go fully digital or not.
Now, super fascinating. Interesting to see the answers from these institutions. I'm happy to see many examples from students actually creating fashion in a purely digital setting. There's reports from Swedish School of Textiles that they're actually showing them AR, VR technologies and so forth. But it's kind of obvious as well that there's a sort of a hesitancy or at least uncertainty as to how much they should go into this and what exactly their role is going to be within digital fashion.
Yeah, and it could be my prejudice, but I just thought that, for example, Polymoda, like the conservative Italians would be like, no, we don't want anything with this. But the director of the school, Massimiliano Giornetti, I think he's doing other stuff too. He's really like, he just said in this text how all the brands that are coming to work with us, they are the ones that are so interested, and the students too. So we kind of have to adapt to them. And Polymoda, they have a 4-week course called Fashion for the Metaverse, which is quite clear. Really interesting. And then I also thought it was interesting how the Royal College of Art, how Zoe Broach, the head of fashion there. She said that it was kind of bubbling before the pandemic, but then, the UK had such strict restrictions during the pandemic. So she was like, when everyone was just sat at home and we couldn't go and sit at a sewing machine, we couldn't go and, do some measurements on a mannequin.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of had to, even the teachers and the whole school. So now she's like, and one quote she had I thought was really interesting, because she was kind of blown away by all these projects that the students handed in. So she said, I'm just gonna read a quote here. She said, and I think that the designers of the future are not just going to be designers of fashion, but designers of identity. Because she was so impressed by how the fashion was genderless, and she could, like we've talked about before, could be a dragon coming in their clothes on. Though fashion designers will kind of have to adapt to identity designing too, which I thought was really interesting.
I think this goes to the heart of what we've been talking about at Scandinavian Mind. It's in our third issue. It's in the lecture that I've been doing for fashion brands here in Stockholm. And the reason we're doing this is because we are continuing our work in the digital fashion space. We're going to release a report later this year on this topic, and this survey of the international, fashion institutions, the educational institutions, is going to be part of that. And I think what you just said, that this is about identity, is really at the heart of why this is interesting. I find it also very fascinating that it's driven both by the creators, the young generation of designers. We've seen that. We've covered Marie Isaksson, for example, a graduate of Beckmans, and also I think the university in London, but also from the fashion industry. So I think the brands are seeing that this is going to be a big business. There's no two ways about it. Fortnite is selling skins for billions of dollars. The fashion industry, they want their share of it. It's their sort of home turf, and the creators wants to get into this as well. So it's just interesting to see where this is going.
Yeah, and also, like these people are saying here in this survey, it's not all about this whole direct avatar thing. It's really important for talking about shipping costs and sustainability. Sample production, fit and sizing, and using these new technologies to just as you finish the very last piece of that piece of clothing. Every step before that, you can use digital tools to not just waste material. So being a fashion student and learning these 3D programs is amazing for them because I'm pretty sure that these big brands will kind of demand them to design everything firsthand in 3D programs until the very last step of production.
Anyways, it's our first part of our big survey, how the world's biggest fashion universities are adapting to digitization. It's written by our editor-at-large, Oliver Dahle. A second part is coming out, and we'll definitely have him on this podcast to talk about his findings. All right, moving on in other news and other parts of digitization in the world, the Vatican, of all, will create an NFT gallery to, quote, democratize art. Erik, you've been looking into this. What's happening, really?
It's a fun short story, but same. My prejudice about Italians being conservative and physical is just going out the window here. Even the Vaticans are doing it. But I just thought it was funny because the initiative is from Father Philip Larry, so it's from a father at the Holy See, and he's the chair of logic and epistemology at the Pontifical Lateran University in the Vatican. And he's also
good job reading that.
Yeah, he's the chair of logic. That's pretty cool. And he's the dean of the philosophy department. So I guess I'm not so sure about the Holy See and the Vatican, but they have a philosophy department, and I guess he's the one pushing for digitization there.
I love that his title is chair of logic. It's like they're like admitting the rest of the Vatican is not about logic. We have one guy taking care of logic over here.
I know, it's so strange. And it's kind of a banana republic, I guess, when you hear all these etiquettes. Anyway, so the Vatican, they're sitting on amazing art pieces from the 16th century, over 800 of them, and they have from everything from Michelangelo to Raphael, and also some modern ones like Kandinsky and Van Gogh. But I think what they're saying here is, this is a quote here. So they're saying this is not for any commercial purpose, not for making any money. It's only for a social purpose. It's going to be free, and it's going to be a way to democratize art, like you said.
Mm.
So they want more people, no matter of socioeconomic background, no matter of geographic place in the world, they can come and check out these art pieces. So kind of, I'm guessing they're just going to do a digital gallery. So and they're also not really saying so much about how the NFTs will come into place. One quote is that they're saying also the NFTs don't necessarily have to come in form of artworks. They can also include tickets and other objects. So it's kind of unclear what they're doing here. I think they might just use the NFT as a buzzword.
Mm.
I'm not sure, but it's a funny headline.
Yeah, maybe the chair of logic also realizes the logic of taking the message of this. You need the buzzword NFT in the headline to to have guys like us
Yeah,
talking about it. I think
yeah,
it's fascinating. I think it's the first time I've seen an NFT product that's not about selling stuff. I mean, NFTs
yeah.
obviously
Of
has been
course.
mostly talked about as this kind of financial instrument for selling art in the digital
Yeah.
space, but their approach is different. And I guess it's in a way there's some kind of scenario where you still want these pieces of artworks to be secured in a way. By I mean, the Vatican is actually owning these works of Kandinsky and Van Gogh and Michelangelo and Raphael and all these kind of iconic works. And I
Mm.
think maybe they need to create the NFTs just to secure them. Who knows?
And it could also be a bit fun, I guess. Like, any kind of, like, it's like a museum visit. Like, oh, look, I own a part of the Vatican, or I own like a 1,000 part of this old painting.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like they said, the NFT could be the ticket. So I know it could be like, you can sometimes you use it memorabilia. You save your ticket for a
Mm.
museum. Could be this way, like you get a ticket to go into this virtual museum, even though you can't travel there, and then you get to keep it as an NFT. Like, hey, I visited the Vatican Museum.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of are murdering Roland's own topic here. He's our, obviously the host of our Const Art podcast. I think they actually mentioned this in a previous episode, and we'll see what he thinks of us bringing this up. Maybe we're way late on this one, and I think there is a new episode of Const coming out next week, so we'll see
Yeah,
if he mentions this then as well.
yeah.
All right, moving on in the digital space around the world. News broke the other day that Spotify Island is coming to Roblox. So it's a kind of a Spotify world. They are calling it a paradise of sound where fans and artists from all over the world can hang out and explore a wonderland of sounds, quests, and exclusive merch. Have you looked at this, Erik? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I think this is a way to, what is happening to music and what is happening to how we listen to music in a way. So I remember hearing or reading somewhere, I can't remember where, how songs from like the 30s or 40s, they were kind of like 2 minutes and 30 seconds because it
Mm,
was really expensive to record them and they didn't have the technicality to do it. And then the songs from like the 90s were like starting to get around 5-6 minutes, or like the 70s and 80s. And now they're also going back again. They're getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So it's like the same now, around 2 minutes, because there's no, the attention span is way too short. And, artists are literally making songs for TikTok. They're making their,
mm, mm.
their music for different digital platforms, because no one's really sitting down with an album listening. So this is like a really interesting way to see, because it says Spotify is saying this. This will be a really exclusive way for fans of different artists to go on this island, this Spotify island, listen to music and get merch. So obviously, I'm pretty sure that all these they had an island called the K Island, it's K-pop island. Of course, these K-pop stars will make songs specifically for this island. And how long will they be? Will they be 30 seconds long?
Yeah, yeah.
And will it only be a song specifically made for a Roblox theme of that you're supposed? What happens to the music video when albums and songs are dropped in these metaverses? It's really interesting to see where music takes off from here.
Yeah, and I actually have a kind of a hot take on this that I want to mention. But obviously, we should mention that our own Sara Larsson did her own concert in Roblox. Was it last year, last
Yeah,
summer?
it was last year.
Yeah, yeah, and she was like stunned by the amount of people tuning in or logging on to see her show. It's like north of 3 million or something. Obviously, kind of big crowd for a concert.
Crazy.
I also think this is. I think it's super fascinating. I'm not surprised they're doing this. But going kind of back to what we talked about with digital fashion just a moment ago, and this notion of creating identity online. And
Mm.
I have a theory that we're going to see the kind of like a merge of music, entertainment, and fashion in these digital worlds, and they will probably merge in gaming like or metaverse like environments. But because I don't think the new generations coming up distinguish between these three. I mean, we consider it different industries. We talk about them
Mm.
as different entities. Like,
Mm.
fashion is its own thing. It's the way you look, and there's obviously been correlations with how you look and the kind of music you like. But it's still like really separate things. Like,
Mm.
but I think with the emergence of what you just mentioned, TikTok, how that's sort of interconnected, the way that the music clips is part of the experience of TikTok, and there you can see like a fitness video or a fashion video or something of the likes. Or clips from upcoming films. Films are becoming games. Games are becoming films. I see kind of. I don't have a name for this, and I'm sure other people have talked about it. But I think it's interesting to explore the fact that as new generations are growing up in these worlds, they're not going to distinguish between experiencing a piece of fashion or a piece of music because it's all digital. It's not separated. It all lives in one single experience.
Mm.
And I think the fact that Spotify is entering Roblox is a step in that direction.
Really interesting. I think someone in, I can't remember now, but in the survey that we talked about before,
Mm.
one of the directors of one of the schools talked about this exact same thing, how fashion, everything can kind of fall under a fashion umbrella now
Yeah.
that they're telling the students how to design this. It can't just only be a runway; it has to be include all these things because wearing a digital suit in a game could mean
Mm.
so much. And
Mm.
like you said, you're just enjoying stuff. You're not really thinking, oh, is this music or is this fashion or is this gaming? It's just great content
Mm.
that you're taking in all at once.
I mean, maybe I'm stating the obvious here. I mean, there's no shortage of examples of, you're seeing Kanye being the creative director of Gap and so forth, and how sort of the music and fashion industry are really getting more and more intertwined. But what I am seeing, and why this is an interesting example, is the fact that it's actually kind of metaphysically merging in these digital worlds. They're becoming this, the same experiencing, the
Mm.
same experience. It happens all at once, and now the different stakeholders are merging with each other, partnering with each other to try to kind of capture the new types of experiences that the metaverse will entail. All right, last but not least, we're going to travel to one of our favorite cities here at Scandinavian Mind, Helsinki. I was there the other day and, amongst other things, visited the launch of the new Pacer Pro from the Finnish wearable tech brand Polar. Iconic wearable tech brand. They're also celebrating 45 years in the industry of wearables. They're kind of the OG of uh, the sort of
Definitely.
wearable sports watches, and they're celebrating it together with an exhibition of sports tech at the Sports Museum of Finland, which is also located in this iconic Olympic stadium in Helsinki. Just standing outside this beautiful, iconic Olympic stadium is an experience. So I was there. Visiting this exhibition, and in the exhibition we saw some of these really cool old from 1977, these old sports heart monitoring watches. I showed you a few pictures of them to you, Sedin. I don't know. It's been 45 years. You can't believe it.
And they looked really cool. I think we should put one in the show notes, just like how cool they look. Probably, I would like to go for the retro design if I was to buy one.
Yeah, maybe we'll relay that input to the Polar guys. No, it's super fascinating. Obviously, I mean, well, this is a space that obviously has heavy competition from the likes of Apple, Google, who bought Fitbit the other year. But I think just as from a Nordic perspective, we're kind of very proud that we have Polar, and they are really far ahead in terms of increasing the resolution. I call it resolution. I'm not sure that's the right term, but they're talking about how with these new devices that are coming out, they can really measure down to the single heartbeat of the human being, and they're all about sports and fitness and health, and how this can help instruct the user on when to rest, how to improve their training, and so forth. So that was really interesting to hear. And I also had the opportunity to speak to Jussi Peltonen. Jussi is a PhD and works as a senior researcher at Polar. And we're going to hear him talk about the evolution of wearable tech, and a little bit about also what's in store for the future. So let's just bust right into it and hear Jussi Peltonen from Polar talk about the evolution of wearable technologies. Enjoy. All right, so I'm here with Jussi Peltonen, PhD, senior researcher at Polar, celebrating 45 years of measuring heart rate. I'm going to go in and talk about your innovations, but to start with, why do we need to measure heart rate? What are the fundamentals?
What are the fundamentals? Well, like I've said, that we all want a healthy heart, and to get that we must exercise. We must be active, and obviously you can be active without any measurement device, but for many people, how the technology can help us is the way that we can. If we have, let's say, we have a training program, which can be from electric program, or it can be from a personal trainer. Then with the technology, it allows you to see that you are doing what you were intended to do in your program. So in my mind, it gives you takes some pressure from you, because then you can be kind of more confident that you are doing what you were supposed to do. And I guess the other good thing with the technology is that what we can track our development, and we can track what we have been doing in a very easy way. Because if, for example, let's say that you have an injury, and your doctor or physiotherapist asks you to what you have been doing recently, and you start to memorize, and I can't remember. But if you have been using a kind of a fitness tracker, you can just go back to your service and, okay, this is what I have been doing for the last month or last 2 weeks or whatever period we want to look at. So it's a great tool in remembering. I think that's one of the things, yeah.
Well, what you just said there, sort of the extension of technology in human behavior or human lifestyles, that's pretty much what we cover at Scandinavian Mind. I mean, Polar has been doing this 45 years, and in this exhibition that we're in right now, this exhibition of sports tech, we see some of the oldest devices that Polar has done.
Yeah.
Really kind of, as you say, you kind of invented a new kind of category of wearables. In your research, have you used the old machines? Have you gone and looked at that technology, where it all started?
No, unfortunately, I haven't been allowed to touch those treasures. I think they're too valuable. Yeah.
Okay, but looking at the type of technology that you are working with right now, can you give us a peek into the work that you're doing at Polar? What does it look like for you guys and your team?
Well, the heart rate technology is one thing that is improving all the time. So if you look at some years back, we had to wear a heart rate belt to be able to get the heart rate. So nowadays we don't need to. Well, technically heart rate is different thing that we measure with the optical system. Optical system measures pulse, but it's close enough. So that's one of the things that has improved tremendously during the recent years. And now we can measure every single heartbeat, for example, during the night, and that allows us to enhance the feedback that we give the customers. But then in addition to heart rate, the sensors that measure, for example, movement, they are becoming smaller and smaller and less expensive. So maybe, I don't know, I don't have any facts, but just to give you an idea, maybe some years, some motion sensor that was used in a fighter jet and cost like 1 million, it can be now embedded to this kind of devices, and therefore you can get a lot of different new metrics. For example, in sports, you can measure jumps and you can measure the power when you're running, when you're accelerating, stuff like that.
You said that in the presentation. I found that very fascinating, that you can measure every single heartbeat, and it's almost like the resolution is getting much greater if you make the analogy to a digital picture or something, that you can see more detail. Am I right?
It is. It is. The problem that we have with optical sensor technology is that the noise is much bigger than with the heart rate belt, but because the algorithms are getting smarter and smarter and better every day, so we are able to extract more information from the signal that we measure, and currently we can measure every single heartbeat during the night or during the rest. During exercise, it's still a bit more trickier because there is more noise, because there is a lot of movement, but it's just improving day after day.
So what can we do with all this new data, all this new sort of granular data of the heart rate? You mentioned that we can measure our rest, for instance, much more. So
yeah.
How is this useful for the consumer?
Well, of course, consumer doesn't have to know all the details. They can just look at the feedback. But if we go a little bit into the physiology, so what happens when we exercise is that our heart beats faster, but it also beats more evenly. So to say that there's less and less variation between the heartbeats, but the opposite happens when we rest. So the heartbeat gets lower, and it also it beats less evenly. So and this irregular heartbeat, it's a good thing. It's a sign of a healthy heart, and that is something that you would want. And now we can measure, for example, that during the night and during the sleeps, and if you do it correctly, I mean, if you do exercise correctly, it can facilitate this signature of healthy heart. And now we can measure if you're doing it. Of course, there are stresses in your life that we can't measure at the moment, but hopefully that is also possible that in the future we can go more into the details. So what are the things that cause you stress in life? Because we can record the heart rate basically during the whole 24 hours a day. We can already do it right now, But at the moment we focus on exercise and we focus on sleep, because sleep is it's controlled situation, and therefore it's good for the measurement.
Well, obviously, Polar, you don't only provide the actual measurements. You have different services, interfaces that the consumer can interact with and get this sort of feedback loop on their performance and on their body. Do you have some favorites that you use from the Polar app?
Polar app, yes. Well, my favorites is I've already mentioned. I look at my nightly recharge, so I mainly look at my ANS charge, which is the autonomic nervous system, because I want to look at how my what is my heartbeat and what is my heart rate variation. Because I have noticed, for example, that if I drink alcohol, if I watch football late, if I do exercise too late, then my heartbeat is faster during the night, and then I'm not getting the sleep I want. So that's one of the things I look at early in the morning. Then the other heart rate features that I use every day is our Training Load Pro, which uses heart rate to measure my cardio load. And because it remembers, it can remember the last 28 days of my exercises, so I can check that every day and see what is my training load status. So if I have been training too much, it will warn me. Sometimes I don't agree with the feedback, but often I do, because I have noticed that it's in line with my subjective feelings. And if I have been training too much, I also look at the prediction, because the algorithm is also predicting how the future will look like. So I'm also looking at the future, how my status looks tomorrow or day after that. And when I'm exercising, when I'm running, for example, I like to use running power a lot, because it's a great tool during interval training sessions, and I use it especially when I'm doing interval or sprint training sessions in hills. So I'm running against slope. So those are the features that I probably use the most.
Can I humor you with looking into the future here a bit? I mean, there are many people argue that we are kind of becoming these cyborg creatures. We're kind of glued to our phones. We become addicted to technology. Technology enhances us in many ways. We've seen examples of now Elon Musk developing this sort of Neuralink, where you are, essentially operate surgically, infusing technology into the bodies.
Yeah.
Where do you see it going, and what are you excited about? I don't know, you can decide 10 years, 15 years. Are there things you're looking forward to, or perhaps are scared of?
Well, I guess I'm optimistic because I'm not too scared. Of course, there are things we probably have to discuss. And that's fine, but I'm not scared. I'm more excited. What I think is, at a general level, I think we have a certain strengths and we have certain weaknesses in a human body. One of the weaknesses is our memory, and already we have solutions like Training Load Pro for that. And then we have weaknesses like sometimes communication can be a little bit problematic, and that's what you refer to when you're mentioning about the Elon Musk's Neuralink. So I haven't really thought about what would be the biggest weaknesses that we have that we are going to solve next, but that is something that I'm sure the technology will become part of us. Maybe even it will be embedded to our bodies and to solve the weaknesses that we have as human beings.
And is this any stuff you are researching on today, or?
No, unfortunately I can't talk about that.
Lips are sealed.
Yes.
Yes, a senior researcher at Polar, thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Jussi Peltonen, senior researcher at Polar, who are launching their new Pacer Pro this week. Obviously, I was in Helsinki also to prepare for our upcoming Transformation Conference, the second edition, happening in Helsinki end of May, the 31st of May. Invites will be going out next week. It's going to be a kind of a limited event. This new upcoming project. It's all about fashion tech and new materials. We're going to talk more about it next week when it's becoming official. But it's going to be a twin event. First edition in Helsinki, 31st of May. Second edition in Stockholm, 25th of August. So we're really excited about this. We have some great partners on board, including Helsinki partners, the City of Helsinki, Stockholm Fashion District, and the Finnish Embassy here in Stockholm. So really happy about that. So be on the lookout. We have a few spots at the Helsinki event. If someone's listening, we might be able to squeeze you in. Always nice to give that as a nugget to our listeners. I think the last time we did that, people actually came to our launch from the listenership, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
All right, this has been the Scandinavian Mind podcast with me, Konrad Olsson, and Erik Sedin. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter to stay updated. Until next week, goodbye.
See you.